Daniel and I are here with Chandler, and we're super excited for this interview because Chandler's story is a bit different than normal. He's tried a bunch of different business models. He's learned a lot of different lessons through that. He's also overcome some addictions and different things in his personal life. And so we're super excited to talk about this and talk about how Chandler, just in his second month of high ticket sales, has made over $10,000 in commissions altogether. So, Chandler, welcome. And let's start from where it started with 2023. Walk us through like where you were at this point in your life. You're basically a financial advisor making 4K a month. What's kind of going on in your life at this point?
Yeah, this was a year after I graduated college. I majored in finance and accounting, so I took the typical route that most Americans do, going to university, thought that was, the best path for me, and then quickly realized that I didn't want to be stuck in the corporate environment. The future looked bright for me at the company I was working for, but the timeline was a little bit further than what I wanted. And truthfully, I mean, I just wanted to do something different. I wasn't super thrilled with the work that I was doing. And so, yeah, just like going day by day, felt like I was just going through the motions and not super passionate with what I was doing then.
Mm. And at this point, did you know about high ticket sales?
I think I've heard of it, but I was not super informed. I was not super interested and
Mm.
yeah, definitely didn't cue my interest at that time.
And what about like personal life? Is this at a time where you like were doing some of the partying, drugs, etc.?
Yeah, definitely after college. I mean, in college as well, kind of brought those habits with me to after college, where wasn't hanging around the best people, wasn't hanging around, solid, motivated guys that would push me to be better. And so, yeah, was just continuing the partying and wasn't like living up to my potential by any means.
All right, then in July 2023, you had a call with myself for a different sales mentorship. So walk me through what happened there. I
Well,
didn't I didn't close you. We'll say that.
yeah,
Or maybe
yeah.
I didn't close you on the mentorship. I think I maybe closed you on some ideas to change.
Yeah, I wasn't completely sold on sales at that time. I wanted to, I felt I wanted to I was a entrepreneur, so I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to do this all on my own. And so I pursued the marketing route instead of I was helping landscapers get more appointments through Facebook ads, and I did that for some time and realized that it was a lot more difficult than just doing like something like this as a closer role. Because as a business owner, as you know, you just have to juggle a lot more things. So decided that high ticket sales was not going to be the best route for me at that time.
What happened on the call though that maybe changed some things for you?
I don't totally remember how it went. I just know that it had such an impact on me, the way basically sold me on what I needed to change as a man and how to take that next step. And so it left a really big impact on me. And so that's why when I first met you, stayed in touch through Instagram, I knew that eventually we were going to work together, cross paths again. And so, yeah, definitely influenced my decision into joining B2C because I knew whatever product you were going to release, it was going to be pretty good.
So let's see, a whole year goes by. So let's talk about that just for people listening. Like you got on your first sales call with me about high ticket sales, and then a whole year goes by. What made you, was this like you said, you're doing more of the marketing stuff and you weren't yet sold on like high ticket sales as a vehicle, or like what was the reason for you not yet, taking that step?
Yeah, I wasn't super informed with how well and how much money you can make in high ticket sales at that point. I mean, I still wanted to run my own business. And so, yeah, I wasn't super tapped in with the potential that you could, how much money you really could make in high ticket sales. And I don't
Mm.
think I've looked a whole lot into it as well. I heard like different sales roles, but also at that time, yeah, I just wasn't super knowledgeable about the high ticket space and how you can just work from home, work from wherever, take calls online and, make a killing doing that.
And so you leave though your financial advisor role, you then get into like financial accounting work that you do as like a contractor, basically.
Correct.
And you're making around similar money, like 3 to 4K a month.
Right.
And you do that basically for another year. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think this
Correct.
is important just for the listeners. Like 2 years basically have gone by since Chandler first like heard of the opportunity, which is probably something that will resonate with like people watching this. Like they've probably heard of high ticket sales for a few years now. And then let's keep going. So March 2025, you join Born to Close. So like what made you want to join the mentorship in March?
Yeah, specifically just was on Instagram, saw that you teamed up with Daniel, went and took a look at Daniel's content and respected it a lot, could tell that he had a good head on his shoulders. And so once I knew that, you know, this was the product you were releasing, that because you've never like sold anything that I saw on Instagram. So I was like, I mean, it, like I said before, I mean, knowing that impact you had on me, that whatever you were releasing was going to be high quality, and I wanted to get in before the prices went up. And so join the program just based on entirely what on what I saw from you guys.
Mm.
Mm.
And then I know at this time I remember you were coming to my calls. I don't know if you were going to other people's calls, but on those calls you would ask me a bit about like your SaaS, like growing a SaaS company, but you still yet weren't really taking any real steps. Is that right?
To answer your question, and in that time in March, I was still doing the financial accounting, so I was juggling that. Wanted to grow my SaaS. I had a couple of clients doing that, and then also interested in crypto. So yeah, I was doing like multiple things at once. It was financial accounting, crypto, SaaS, joining this mentorship sales. And so essentially I was so interested in multiple business models, but given the opportunity that you presented, I still really wanted to join and like learn more about it.
Mm. So yeah, I think that's a good note for the listeners. Like basically, if you try to do everything, at least in the beginning, like once you get more leverage, you can do different business models. But in the beginning, if you try to do what Chandler was doing at this point, which is like some contract work with financing, some SaaS, some crypto, etc., like you're not really going to make much progress in any one vehicle, right?
Mhm.
And then let's see, August 2025, you basically changed your environment. So what led to that decision and why did you pick Mexico?
Yeah, so in August, so I had an apartment in Indianapolis for about a year and a half. And so I moved back home in March of when I basically joined that mentorship. And I at that time, January through March, I stopped partying. I was really good. And then when I moved back home in March, I I reverted back to my old habits, like the environment. The first day back, I literally just caved back in. And so I went back to like partying a bit until August, and I was just I knew that I had to change the environment for the best chance of success. And so watching some of like your learnings and what having conversations with you just said, hey, switch your environment. So I literally sold all my belongings, packed everything into a suitcase, went to Mexico because it was affordable, nice weather, and safe. And then went there. I saw like two Americans the entire time I was there in the city I was in. And so it really just forced me to change and moving to that new environment. It made it so much easier to get rid of old habits, get rid of anything that wasn't productive because it was just a new identity. I My new identity was tied to this new place, and I walked in there saying we're just going to work, we're not going to do any of that other stuff. And it made it so easy to rebuild myself and take one step forward and becoming that version that I knew I wanted to be for so long.
Hmm.
Mm. Sick.
I like the word conditioning. The conditions you're in have made you be a certain way. And so what you basically did is you change your conditions. So if you change your conditions and I obviously this is the conversations I was having with Chandler because around this time I was traveling throughout Europe and then eventually with Dan in South America. And I learned that if you change your conditions, it exposes your conditioning and it shows you what you can't really see when you're in the same conditions you were in. So yeah, that's super cool. And then it sounds like that basically means you were working on your internal state and you were like rebuilding your identity, your beliefs, who you were, etc. And you went to other countries as well, right?
Yeah, so I was in Mexico for 9 weeks, a little bit longer than what I wanted, because I think that's what you share doing like 30-day sprints in different areas. You just keep leveling up faster and faster and faster. So if anybody's listening and they want to switch their environment, I would limit it to 30 to 45 days until you feel like you really maxed out your potential there. Because there's always new areas you can improve in like specific little
Yeah.
time usages and things like that. And so was there and then flew out to New York in September for the WAP opportunity.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the WAP. So as everyone knows, WAP is a very big payment processor and community platform. And they do a lot of different things, to be fair. And I forget the exact number, but they run like, I want to say like almost billions through their company,
Yeah.
just from being a payment processor essentially for all these different companies and products and things like this. But anyways, how did that opportunity come to be? Like, and like, what were the steps you took to actually, because like you got a trial and the trials are pretty difficult to land. Like they're very competitive.
Yeah. Well, the opportunity came from you guys, just thrown in the WhatsApp group and was a no-brainer offer. And so went through the interview process, got some tips and tricks from you guys on how to, land the in-person interview. Got through the virtual interviews. There was about two, and then they flew me out and then worked with them for about a week. Unfortunately, didn't get that opportunity, but at the time it felt like it was unfortunate. But then looking back, that was it's all part of the plan because I learned a lot of good skills and then I'm still working with them today in different aspects. And yeah, and now it's led me to new opportunities that I didn't, if I would have chosen that, I wouldn't be at where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so I think that's sick because I also got some good feedback from Chandler from the WAP team about Chandler when he was doing his trial that he was essentially putting in more hours than any other people on trial. So that's sick, sick. I think you really like took that opportunity like by the horns and maximize all you could. And as you said, it
Mhm.
didn't necessarily go your way, but I think from my point of view, like it changed how you saw what you were capable of, which is sick. And just to add on,
100%.
not to blow smoke, but I think this is a good example of what can happen with if you have the right network, where essentially because I also knew Chandler and thought he would do well, we basically just went through and I gave him all the questions that would be asked on the interview. I told him what they were going to say, how to approach it. I told him what trial projects they might have him do, how to approach those. And so he basically just got to speed run that process where I think a lot of people get lost there because they don't know what the company's actually looking for. So that's just like a meta point of when you join the mentorships and you really, put yourself out there and you listen to what Dan and I say, like we can like help you skip a lot of steps, right? Cool. And then let's talk about, so up until this point, you haven't actually been in high ticket sales yet. So we're now in October 2025. The first time you had on a call was with me in July 2023. So now we're actually getting to the first role you've done. So walk us through what happened here.
Specifically in what way?
How did it come about? How did you hear about the role? What was the interview process like? And then, yeah, what happened then?
Yeah, similar to the other opportunity was presented the role in the group chats to WhatsApp. And so the opportunity was thrown in there, took action immediately. I knew it was gonna working with Dan on the team that he was managing was going to be super beneficial. And so applied, not sure exactly how many people I was competing with, but sent my loom in. The offer owner liked it. And then, yeah, went through the interview process. The other applicants, fortunately, showed up a little bit late. And so I wasn't competing with as many people as I maybe would have been. And then, yeah, the offer owner liked my interview. He liked who I was as a person. And so, definitely you guys gave me some advice on the best chances of landing the role, what I needed to display, who I needed to be, and it was just really good timing with the opportunity, jumping on it immediately, and things worked out. I landed the role.
I was speaking to the owner and I was actually like trying to egg him to get you, but he liked the other ones to loom a little bit more. So I was saying like I think he's more of a wild card because he's not got experience, but I think he's got the most upside. So I'd rather have him on the team.
Mm.
Um, but the owner was like, well, I like the other one's application and he's a little bit older, so I'm gonna pick him. And then he was late, luckily. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
I would
wanted to
say
have him, mate.
the other thing for the listeners watching is like when I met the owner, is how much Chandler would be willing to work. So like Chandler, for example, for all the like people listening, like he basically opened his calendar like wide open, like
Yeah,
as many slots as possible. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to get into high ticket sales. I want to make 10K plus a month. And then they're like, oh, but I don't want to work weekends. I don't want to work after XYZ time. And
yeah,
obviously, eventually, you want to get to a point where you can control your schedule. But in the beginning, you got to be willing to be adaptable and like do what it takes. Because I know Daniel, for example, he worked from like 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. on like
yeah,
that US time zone while in Europe. You know, I personally worked like any hours that I could. And I think that's like a common trait of people who make it is like I said, it doesn't have to be forever, but there is a period of time where you're gonna have to just do what it takes, whether that's working every hour of the day or opening your calendar on like inconvenient hours, staying up late, things like this. So yeah, good stuff for that, Chandler, because I think that also made the business owner be like, oh, this kid's not playing around. Like he's willing to dedicate himself and make sacrifices. So yeah, basically you apply for the role by the end of November, it's locked in. You started taking was it you first started taking unqualified calls, which is what we do with this offer to kind of ramp you up. And then December was your first month actually taking qualified calls, right? So December's first month of closing and you made about 4.7K USD in commissions. So how was this month?
Yeah, it was good. I came in and went on a hot streak. Went like all my first qualified calls were I went like 6 for 6. Not that I was him. I was just closing deals left and right. And then quickly, realized that it's more than just having a solid discovery process. It's dialing in objections. And so it was a good start for sure and definitely got me excited to, because I feel like for me in the past, maybe this will resonate with some people, is you try something new and maybe you look at the past and this is definitely a limiting belief of you not having a whole lot of success in other things because you've been flip-flopping, you've been trying different things and you don't stick to things enough to start seeing success. And so once I started getting those wins under my belt, it felt so real to me. And hopefully that resonates with some people of, you try different things and you never get to that point of really feel like you're capable of doing something. And so, yeah, this was just like the first proof in the pudding of like, things didn't really work out in the past for me in the way I wanted to, but staying committed to this for a month, learning the skills, learning the process, and then getting those wins definitely gave me the confidence that like I can definitely do this.
At this point, I would say around here is when you really dialing in the state. Obviously, you're going to always continue on the state. Here, you obviously landed the offer, which was a good opportunity. Daniel and I are managing the account. The business owner is super dialed in. Is then really where I feel like you started focusing on the skill of sales and closing. So, like you said, discovery, but also like objection handling and all the nuances. And so, basically, by the time we get to January, we had state offer and skill lined up, right? And so, let's talk about last month, how much you made in commissions from this role plus your commissions from WAP.
Yeah, so yeah, it is February now. So last month made about, I want to say given I think a dispute that went through, I want to say like 9.4K from the offer itself, and then still working with WAP, I made an additional 4K last month.
Let's
Yeah.
go. And just for the listeners, what exactly do you do for WAP? Because we mentioned you did the trial, and then what capacity did you start working with them then?
Yeah, so didn't land the role that I was applying for, and then still saw an opportunity to work remotely with them on the partnership side, getting people signed up, getting people processing on there from other processors, and still help them out in that capacity, just not in person in the New York City role that I was applying for in September.
Mm.
Mm.
We also have a few crypto dots here. So real quick, I know we said only focus on one thing, but you're also obviously taking some of your earnings um and investing in crypto. So like what has happened there a bit as well?
Yeah, so took some of my earnings, some of my cash flow in instead of investing in the S&P 500. I'm super passionate about crypto. And so yeah, in September I caught the Aster pump, made about 60,000. And so that's why you can see that big jump there. And then also last month put a chunk of money into Surge, despite the bear market, still wanted to take an opportunity there and made about 30,000, 32,000. And so separate from the high ticket sales, the commissions, also some investment money that came in that was definitely due to the states that you guys taught me in the program, being
Mm.
sober minded, controlling your emotions. That's a huge thing when it comes to trading. And so was able to apply the stuff you taught me when it comes to state in also other aspects of my life.
Mm.
Let's go. If we zoom out, as we said, like Chandler's story is cool because it's a bit different. He's been interested or known about the space for a while. And from when he actually joined his first role to making over, 9K, almost 10K in commissions plus WAP commissions was very short, only about 2 months. So he definitely is a good example of someone who, once he did decide where to put his energy, he went all in, he took action, he listened, he got the feedback, he showed up. Like Chandler asks a lot of good questions, he implements the information. He's very like intellectual and understanding the why behind the frameworks and things like this. And then, yeah, it's super cool to see as well that you're learning things in here that's also helping you, make 60K plus in crypto. So good stuff. When you look at this as like a zoomed out, is there anything else you want to add in on like your journey or maybe something for the listeners that's been a big takeaway for you?
Yeah, I'd say it's cool to see it mapped out like this. I appreciate you guys putting this together because yeah, looking back, if I had to give advice to myself in June 2023, I would have, I mean, if I was 18 right now, and it doesn't matter your age, I would have one, not going to college. I would have just gone straight into high ticket sales. It's easily the fastest way to make 100K, 200K, 300K a year. So just I would join this program, go all in. I mean, we all have 16 hours in a day, do 2 hours gym, the other 14 hours, just sales, just learning the process, just watching calls, just role playing, 14 hours straight of that. And you can get ramped up a lot faster than you are. And it's just a game of outworking everybody. If someone's been in the game for 1 to 2 years, it's going to take some time to catch up, but don't use that as discouragement. Just use that as motivation to outwork everybody. If you can put more time than other people and you get those skills and you land on an up and coming offer like I did, if you just work more, nobody can catch up. And so that's been my motivation and my mindset of like, if I just keep putting in time, my skills are just going to keep getting better and better. And
Mm.
eventually it's going to be, I'm going to be doing 20 to 30K a month here in the next couple of months. And I see that trajectory. I see that possibility. And so yeah, if I would just telling my younger self, just go all in, literally, even if you have to sacrifice that gym. I've been sacrificing the gym for the last month, 2 months, and Jack says that, that might be affecting my abilities a little bit. So I'm going back to the gym now and still prioritizing that time. But yeah, just go all in and literally cut out everything that's not gonna move you forward. Stop
Mhm.
doom scrolling, stop filling your mind with these things that are distracting you, like social media, anything that's not sales related or is going to bring you closer to your goal, just cut it out. And if you want to bring those things back into your life after you're doing 20 or 30K a month, that's cool. But you're going to have to make some short-term sacrifices for the long-term game. And in my opinion, it's completely worth it.
I think it's cool seeing it as well because you've had a lot of struggles and maybe times at which you couldn't see the future, and then you can see how probably in those moments you didn't know what was on the horizon. Like there's probably a lot of uncertainty, you just sort of don't really see where you're going. But then when you simply just decided to go in a certain direction, it will just panned out. So it's like
Mhm.
good to see that like there's probably people watching this and they're like in a similar boat to you and in June to July 2025, and
Yeah.
they're probably like, what the fuck's going on? But then once you just decided, it just went up from there. And like that's what
Yeah.
they don't understand, where it's not actually as bad as they think if they just choose it not to be.
And there's also some like line in the sand decisions that Chandler made, like joining Born to Close, investing the money, selling all of his belongings, completely changing his environment, living by himself in a different country. And then like
Yeah.
even going to New York City for a week, working like crazy hours to try to compete for a super competitive role. Like these three things probably like had such a big impact on his internal state so that when he did get this opportunity, he was in like such a better position because he actually made big life decisions instead of like
Yeah.
pushing them off. Chandler, one
Sounds
last question I have is what do you think was the biggest like impact from the mentorship with you in your journey? Like obviously by looking at this, we can see that you learned about the state, you got the offer through the mentorship and you're obviously learning the skill. But what do you think the mentorship did that helped you the most?
That's a really good question. I'd say it's a couple things. I mean, it seems exactly what you got laid out on the screen. States first and foremost, learning the competitive mentality, what it takes to succeed, and how to think in the best way possible, how to make decisions. So, learning how to compete, and then when it comes to the skill, I mean, hands down, you guys like have been in the space and made enormous amounts of money. And so learning from you guys directly, it's something that I learned recently is you just want to, because I've also been looking at other people that sell stuff, and then I'm like, oh, their process is a little bit differently, and I realized that just need to learn from you guys. Like, you really don't need to listen to anybody else, and the investment has like even my friends, I'm like, bro, you got to join this program. Like, even the investment, just for the mindset, just the state, it's so worth it because it just transforms into every area of the life. And then so on top of skill, obviously the offers. I mean, I would not the offers that come from this opportunity because of your guys' network. I mean, it's just insane. Like, I'd say get in now before that's why I got in March because I knew that this was just gonna like take off and get in now. And if you're seeing this like way in the future, still get in now because the opportunities, the skills, the mindset you need to be successful, it's so worth it. And it's on top of that, having a group of guys that like I consider you guys my brothers. I mean, just straight up, there's nobody else that I think Hormozy talks about this or something, but like whenever I'm making a decision nowadays, I think about just would Jack and Daniel do this or would they not? And so you guys have made such an impact on me when it comes to just life in general that's I want to like work with you guys like forever. And so yeah, you guys have just made a really good impact for sure.
Let's go.
It's well earned, mate. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'll say some closing remarks. Obviously, Daniel and I are like super happy to see your growth. Me especially because I met you like like 2 or 3 years ago now, and I definitely saw when I was on that call with you, that first call, that you wanted to do bigger things, but you were kind of like being held like captive by like your old conditioning and habits. So yeah, seeing you like make that change, join Born to Close, and then the WAP thing, I was like, oh fuck, this kid means business. Like he's not messing around. Because again, like the feedback they gave me, bro, at WAP, they're like, bro, this kid's insane. Like he's sleeping in the office, he's working more hours than anyone. And so once I heard that, I was like, all right, cool. Me and Daniel are definitely wanting to put your name out there for opportunities because we know you're gonna make the most out of it, right? So yeah, seeing you go from there to now, making like 10K in your second month, and then you also have the crypto thing, which is sick. So I think it's just a start for you, bro, and we're excited to see where it goes.